All right, so this is cone 10 clay. It's hard to imagine, but this piece of basically malleable clay will be fired to a point where it's almost like glass. Okay. When I said we make rocks and ceramics, we do. We make objects that all the pottery you see up there will last thousands of years. The oldest pottery shards ever found were found in China about 5 years ago, and that was 17,000. They dated at 17,000 BCE, which means they're almost 20,000 years old, right? That would mean that it's about 19,000 years old. That's a long time. So what we make in here doesn't break down very quickly. Everything that we make in here essentially outlasts the potter, right? So when we learn about ancient civilizations, we study pottery, right? Because clay is so widely occurring, because it exists almost everywhere, we can learn about cultures from the pottery they make. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pat it in the center. What's really important with making pottery is that you can center this clay, right? So a few things about the potter's wheel. The Egyptians invented the potter's wheel about 6,000 BCE. The Egyptians invented the potter's wheel. Prior to that, people were making pottery using coil method and pinching method, where they'd get clay and they'd just make it into a vessel, right? In terms of gender, who do you guys think were the first potters? In terms of gender, so when we're talking about Paleolithic people, who were making the pottery? Were they men or women? Women, yeah, women were the first potters. Women often made baskets. Women used gourds, right? And what did they use those pots for? Was to store liquids and solids, right? Whatever we harvested. So what I'm doing is called coning. Bring it up, right? And I can bring it down. It's like magic, right? All right. So the potter's wheel was invented in basically northeast Africa by the Egyptian culture and moved east from there to Asia, through Asia, India, north into Europe. But the potter's wheel never made its way to America until conquest, right? Until the time of when the Spanish arrived and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a bottle. So I'm opening up the clay. I'm basically preparing the bottom with my finger. I'm compressing it. By compressing the bottom and shaping the bottom, then all I have to do is pull up the walls and the inside bottom is all finished, right? So right now I'm done with the inside bottom and I'm going to pull up the walls. To pull up the walls, I have to make a little bit of a groove. And by making that groove and keeping a steady hand and a steady wheel speed, I can extend the clay vertically. Basically, potters, when they're learning to make pottery, learn how to make a cylinder first. I'm just going to collar this in a little bit. Because when you make a cylinder, you can shape a cylinder into any other form. So now that I have a cylinder, I can shape it to be a bottle. The clay around the base, I can actually trim away. Let's see. My ritual. There it is. So when I trim this clay from the outside, I'm looking at the inside, making sure I don't cut through the wall. It's normal for pottery to be a little bit thicker towards the base than in the middle area. I'm going to go ahead and begin to pull this up again, see if I can't get any more height out of this. There we go. Okay. So now that I have my cylinder, I'll use this tool, which is called a rib. Kind of like a rib in your body, right? And I'm going to shape this form out. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to work my way down to the bottom. I need to get my arm kind of wet. So one of the difference between this and photography is you get kind of dirty with pottery, right? So I'm going to go ahead and bring my hand all the way down. Set my finger right down at the bottom there and begin to push out as I bring this up. And ease off my pressure and then refine the form. At this point, the clay is very, very soft. You can see it's very much like a vase form, right? If I made a lid for this, it could be like a cookie jar, right? Do you guys know the difference between a vase and a vase? Do you know? No? It's $50. You guys don't get it. It's my dumb pottery joke, right? Anyway. Get it like a vase, $50 more, it's a vase. Right? All in the inflection, right? All right. So I'm going to wet this. I'm going to do what's called collaring, but I need to get the water out of the inside. Humans figured out a long time ago that it was very convenient to carry, transport, and store liquids in a narrow-necked vessel, right? That had increased volume. So the shape that I'm making today is no different than the shapes that were made 11,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, right? Or those pots, those pottery shards they found 17,000 years ago in China. People figured out a long time ago that if you used fire and applied it to this material, it would harden. But people have been working with clay for a long time because they'd build their homes with it, right? Remember the mosques in Mali? Those mosques were built with clay. All that surface is clay, right? People cook with clay, right? Clay and grass, you can wrap it around, wrap your food in leaves and then wrap it with clay and then bake it, right? And it steams inside. This is called collaring a pot, where you collar it down. Take this, pull up the neck, and even today, if you go to the supermarket and you go to the soda aisle or to buy water, you buy it in a bottle, right? You don't buy like a jar of water, right? That's how you buy your peanut butter, right? But peanut butter would be very hard to get out of a bottle, huh? Yeah. Okay. So once Europeans settled the Americas, a lot of the technology from the East came west. And you would see that the jug would become a primary vessel because glass vessels were very expensive. Glass is expensive to produce, and so you have all of these clay bottles being formed in the early American pottery. And you would keep your milk, you would keep your water, maybe your wine and your whiskey, right, in your bottles. So do you guys have any questions? Any questions, you guys?
Is it just water? Is it just water?
Pardon?
Is it just normal water?
Yeah, that's just water with clay in it, yeah. And then the last thing I'm going to do to this vessel is cut off this extra clay. This clay down here at the bottom was basically just supporting the wall so I could shape it. And there you go.